This episode of the Buffalonian Podcast is brought to you by the Cast Source Podcast Network, a podcast network built with and for entrepreneurs. We cover many genres, including sports, business, mental health, marketing, and entertainment. We feature the podcast shows such as Sports Bring People Together, Limitless, Saviors of the Metaverse, and The Athletic Mindset. Learn more at castsource.com/podcast. And without further ado, let's get into the Buffalonian Podcast. The Kansas City Chiefs are the Super Bowl 57 champions, and the Sabres, quite frankly, fell off the face of the earth in the past week. Along with the Would You Rather, hot takes, trivia, and more, this is the Buffalonian Podcast. All right, let's go. We are back with the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm Joe Callie, and I'm joined by Dom Loss. And Dom, let's just start it off before we roll into all the Bill stuff going on. The Kansas City Chiefs have won the Super Bowl, those jabronis, it's been quite a ride. It's been the season's finally officially over, which is crazy to me. But Kansas City Chiefs came out on top in a close game with the somewhat argumentative ending in the past week, I would say, with that holding call. But what are your general thoughts after watching that? It was a good Super Bowl. It was competitive the whole way through. I enjoyed watching it. I'm going to be honest with you, but
definitely the last 2 years have been really great Super Bowls. Even three of the last four, I would say, have been pretty good. I mean, other than the Chiefs getting crushed by the Bucks, but even that was kind of entertaining in its way. I mean, the Rams, Patriots, and back in 2018 was just terrible. So.
Mm-hmm.
But really, we've had pretty good Super Bowls. We're pretty blessed for that, even though the Bills don't play in them. It was a great game. I'm glad I picked the game right. Feel very pat on the back worthy.
It was getting down to the wire, I would say. I mean, the Eagles had the lead going into halftime. You think, okay, and then Andy Reid, the second half adjustment king, came out and really took the cake. But
yeah, it was definitely. I mean, you were definitely right. It was become more of a shootout. I thought it was going to be like 10 points less than for each side, pretty much. But I think that's what happens when the Chiefs get a defensive touchdown, a big punt return, which leads to a touchdown. So that's pretty much 14 points, and the Eagles just kind of were pretty much got whatever they wanted the entire game. But listen, at the end of the day, the Chiefs scored touchdowns and the Eagles kicked a pair of field goals. So.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say about the Eagles is they've mastered the 4th and 1, the QB sneak, pushing.
They're going to change that, I believe.
Yeah, I think there's a rule change pending now.
I think they should. The push ruined it.
I mean, we do that with Allen, though. Gabe Davis pushes. You know what I mean?
They're gonna change that rule because it's kind of like how you can't pull someone. I don't think. I think that's illegal.
No, yeah, you can't yank them for yardage. Yeah.
Board. I think they're gonna. Well, then honestly, though, I will say this though. I'm not trying to get super off topic. It would be kind of interesting because then are you never allowed to do it, or is it just on QB sneaks? Like, how are they gonna be able to? We see those pile ups. I think for example, Devin Singletary, that last run against Miami, kind of got piled up and people started pushing him forward when he was 3 yards short of the first down. Like, is that illegal now? Are they gonna take that out?
Right?
Like,
are they gonna say?
That's where I think you get a little. I don't know. I feel like someone's going to exploit that rule, but I digress. It was a great game. Was it holding? Yeah. In the letter of the law, yes.
Yeah.
Do I think it was really enough to impact the play? No. If you saw the NFL films angle, it looks really bad. So I can understand why that. Listen, I understand why that's a flag. And
you can see he's got a handful of jersey, and he's
looking back at it. It's really not as bad as it calls it live. I just don't think Fox gave you a great view of it live, or just quick, or not like the proper angle to really see that from like Bradbury's left. You could like the left angle instead of the right angle. You could see it better. It just kind of it's tough for the game to end that way. But at the end of the day, the Eagles did it to themselves. I mean, as I said, they kicked field goals, gave up a defensive touchdown, nearly gave up 2 defensive touchdowns. And listen, special teams, man, is a 1-game playoff. Special teams may not always be a third of the game, but in playoff time, those moments get a little bigger. And listen, they activated their punter off IR. They did not play Brett Kern, the Grand Island alum. We all know he would have done better because that was a terrible punt.
It was. And let's talk about just
he did make the tackle. To his credit, he did make the tackle.
He did.
Punters matter.
One thing that I was honestly jarred by, and you probably were right there with me on this, Jalen Hurts' final Hail Mary, I thought he hurt himself when he threw that ball because that thing it just went straight and low. There was no oomph behind. You know what I'm talking about?
That's like one of those throws where you're in the backyard and you like the crap throw and it slips out of your hand or this looks funny. You knew once he threw it, I was like, that's just no chance.
Yeah. I mean, you think maybe he slipped or threw his shoulder out or something.
He has a shoulder injury, so you assume maybe it was. I don't know. I thought maybe and when the camera started to zoom down, there maybe there was the play where AJ Brown was gonna moss someone, then lateral till Quez Watkins or Devontae Smith, and they were gonna do the lateral game. But they already gained 40 yards because they threw it. I don't know. I thought maybe that's it, but attempting a 70-yard Hail Mary, I think.
Jalen Hurts, I don't think right away I was like, why
not in my top 5-10 list of people trying to attempt a 70-yard Hail Mary? I'll tell you that.
Allen, maybe.
Allen, Mahomes, A-Rod, even Baker, because Baker's at least thrown a 70-yard air distance before.
Yeah, but speaking of
hard to say, but
speaking of quarterback injury and also transitioning from the Super Bowl to the Bills topic, Ian Rappaport, this is kind of it's a little off topic, but he made a statement about Allen's elbow and whatnot, saying it's not going to need surgery, which is very good. We're not in a Brock Purdy-esque situation here, but it did affect play, which is what I kind of suspected. You know what I mean? Once we were going 3rd and 4 and throwing 50 yards down the field, I'm like, all right, maybe he can't zip it over the top or anything like that anymore, you know?
Yeah, it was definitely, it's interesting because it's how much, I don't want to say excuse or blame, but how much did the elbow injury truly affect him? And I think the first month after, I'd 100% say the elbow injury affected him. You saw it against Cleveland, you saw it against the Vikings, you totally saw it. I think honestly, the person that announced talked about it the best was Tony Romo on Thanksgiving. How he's not 100%, and we saw him missing those underneath throws. And he continued to really do so throughout the year. I mean, he still was able to chuck 50-yard bombs, but so I think that was kind of bizarre. But you feel like, I don't know. I guess I feel like it would be the other way, but I guess if you're throwing a different sidearm, and
Allen, just so one way will tweak you more, it's weird.
Yeah, and Allen talked about on the Kyle Brandt podcast, it was mostly good, but sometimes if he opened a door funny, which I was like, I've never heard anyone use that way of speech before. I've never heard someone opening a door funny with their elbow. I definitely I don't know.
I mean, if you're holding the pizza box, maybe. I mean, that would probably be the only thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard that. I never heard that. Anyone opening a door funny hurt with their hurt elbow, but I think it really impacted him early. I think he adjusted, but at the same time, I'll never think. He says all this stuff about I was good down the stretch. I just think the best thing would have been rest and, what he's doing now, and he didn't do that. So, I think the stats looked better for a month. I think he adjusted, so his stats went back up. But I do think it still impacted him. I think it really stunted the offense short game, and then you get into the bad weather games, with the cold and stuff. So it's hard to say. I think it's just difficult to see. To really quantify how much it truly affected him. But at the end of the day, I'm just happy that he doesn't have to have surgery.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. But now moving into the planned Bills topics we were going to speak about today. Chad Hall, we're just catching up from the week here, events through the week. Chad Hall says bye-bye for the same position, but over in Jacksonville, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So clearly didn't feel like there was room to grow here.
Or learned all he wanted to. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's career-wise probably a good move because I feel like Buffalo's kind of set, you know what I mean, where you're going to be at this point. Unless Dorsey has another lackluster year, which then there might be some turnover, but I think like we were just talking about, there's more at play, like Josh's elbow injury, than horrible play calling all the time. But
yeah, I think it was pedestrian play calling. It wasn't the best play calling, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just going to one point on Josh. Like, I feel like I think that impacted his ability to take the short pass, which made him have to hold the ball a little longer, which made him miss certain throws or whatever. So I think that impacted him too. But with Chet Hall, it's obvious that he wants to be an offensive coordinator. I can't remember what job he interviewed for. I'm blanking on it. But last offseason, he interviewed for an offensive coordinator position. Obviously, he didn't get it. So I think him transitioning from McDermott to Doug Peterson, offensive-minded head coach, really from the Andy Reid tree. He's got Brian Dable. Now he's going to get Andy Reid to Doug Peterson. Like that kind of play calling will just help him a lot. So it was a good. I think it's a little bit surprising because he's so well loved in the locker room, and at the same time, like, can you say that every wide receiver has done phenomenal or developed well? Probably not. I think Diggs, but Diggs was always kind of underrated to come before he came to Buffalo. Davis has improved a lot, but again, this season was kind of wonky, very inconsistent for him. I think he should get credit for McKenzie developing into a little bit more of a gadget player, but I don't know. And then
this year kind of set him back a little bit on that. Last year, if you had told me that, I would have been like, okay, yeah, this guy's,
And then Shakir, like, I don't know what happened there. And I think the big thing that not a lot of people are really discussing is, like, you were the wide receiver coach and you had Isaiah Hodgins in your room. Like, and now you see him have success elsewhere. I got to think that it had an impact on, like, the Bills really wanting him to stay because, like, you are the wide receiver coach. It is your job to identify the talent in your room. Like, for him to, like, kind of sit on Isaiah Hodgins for so long, like, I mean, honestly, it's like, should he get props for developing him, or I know, like, someone's gonna come on and be like, the position coach really doesn't have that much say in the offense. It's really more about development. But at the same time, like, I don't know, like, I feel like him not maybe fighting for Hodgins or him not, Hodgins not getting an opportunity here. I feel like that has to fall. Yes, it falls on the head coach. It falls on the offensive coordinator for not putting him in the offense. But I think it also happened. Your position coach has to be your number one supporter. And I feel like that's a pretty big miss on his end.
Yeah.
And then
I would agree.
It was just lackluster this year. So, like, I listen. Chet Hall did a lot of good. He's well loved. He made Diggs who he is. Davis really turned again. He's done a lot of good, but it's not like I don't think
it ain't all sunshine and rainbows.
I think if we're looking from this job from the end of last year to now this year, you can't tell me he's done he regressed a little bit in the fact of, like, last year it was like, okay, done a phenomenal job. McKenzie looked really good against the Patriots at the end of the year. Gabe Davis had the 4 touchdown game. At the end of this year, we have a lot of questions about the wide receiver room. A lot of talk about they need to add either a veteran or add a first round pick. They let a wide receiver go that now. I mean, he just re-signed with the Giants. Like, a lot of guys are talking about that. A lot of people regress in that room. And that falls on your position coach a lot of the time. It falls on the OC, yes, but it also falls a little bit, I think, on your position coach as well. So I don't think he did a great job this year. And I said to see him go, yes, because I think he's a good coach and he's a good dude.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would agree with that. I'm pretty much on the same page as you. Like, after the 4 touchdown performance of Gabe Davis, I feel like everyone was like, wow, this guy really, he's bringing everyone's greatest side of him out. And then Butterfinger Davis was on the field this year. So, it was a completely different feel. But Adam Henry was hired in that position, correct?
Yes.
And there was also another hiring, Al Holcomb. Did we talk about that on another pod, or was that this week too?
I think we did talk about that because I think we talked about that.
Because it was another defensive guy.
A little bit more of an aggressive system, a little more blitz heavy.
Yeah.
Is because we did talk about that.
We talked about it last Friday.
He's not necessarily a yes man. He actually adds a different expertise in defense that the Bills can incorporate.
Yes, but Adam Henry has been hired in Chad Hall's position. Do you know a resume on like where he's been before and whatnot? Like, what are your general thoughts on that hire?
I think so. I think at first, naturally, when position coaches get hired, it's the same thing about when the safety coach get hired. It's like who? Like I tend to not have an opinion until I kind of see their track record and their resume. And this guy has a pretty nice resume. He's worked a lot with OBJ, Jarvis Landry, those kind of guys. I mean, he was the wide receiver coach for in LSU when Landry and OBJ was there. He was with the Giants. He's with the Browns. Last year, he was with the Cowboys. Last couple of years, I think he was with the Cowboys as well. So, we've seen him develop good wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb developed under him. Noah Brown developed from a special teamer to a kind of a wide receiver for Rashad Higgins, kind of the same thing. I believe he was also the offensive corner at some point for the Browns as well. So he has a little bit of experience calling plays. So yeah, I'm very intrigued. Last year he was with Indiana. It was 2 years. 20 and 21 he was with the Cowboys. 22 he was the offensive coordinator with Indiana University. So he's coming from college. So I think it adds another interesting perspective. He's had a resume of developing younger receivers, as I said, Noah Brown, CeeDee Lamb, OBJ from college, Jarvis Landry from college, Rashard Higgins. And there's a lot of those guys that I think pretty much all those guys that I mentioned are free agents. So come play for your coach. Like I think that has to be. No, I'm not saying that's a. I don't feel like that's
bring in OBJ.
I don't feel like that's a main reason. That's not a main reason why it's definitely a side reason. It's like, okay,
he's got chemistry with these guys, and we're looking for another wide receiver of high talent, so it would make sense.
He's developed talent.
Yeah,
it helped guys maintain their play. I think it's a good pickup. I think it's a unique pickup. It's definitely not. I mean, I don't know a lot of wide receiver coaches, so I definitely think it's cool. He definitely has a good resume with receivers of developing that. So, hopefully we can also, as I mentioned with the list, I hope we can get one of those wide receivers for the cheap. Now, personally, I'm not the hugest Jarvis Landry fan because he ended Aaron Williams' career. But but he's kind of like an upgrade on Jamison Crowder, so I wouldn't hate it. OBJ, I'm kind of out on from the perspective I think he wants big money, and I don't think that's going to work. But then when you look at Noah Brown and Rashard Higgins, like those are guys that would fit. Like to me, I can't remember if Rashard Higgins plays special teams, but I know Noah Brown does. Like Noah Brown would be an upgrade on Jake Kumaro. A guy that's played a little bit more offense. He's not a great receiver, but is a good special teamer. Like he would be a guy that I think would be appealing. I think Higgins would also kind of maybe not be a special teamer, but more like the Jamison Crowder route of adding or a lesser version of Emmanuel Sanders, a guy that has had some productive seasons, kind of as that number 3, number 4 option,
right?
To take pressure off Gabe Davis. So I think those like your 2 cheaper options, and then if you want to spend a little bit more, maybe you get Jarvis Landry. But again, I think he has some good relationships, shown that he can develop talent, has plenty of experience at a lot of different places. So I'm excited for a new breath in the offense. We talked about the defense needing, with Al Holcomb getting a new kind of direction with the coach. I think this is kind of like most of love Chad Hall, a different perspective in the room now. Maybe this helps the Bills get that extra step offense. So by playoff time, there you can take it over the top.
Yeah, and as we said with Chad Hall, I mean, our receiver guys have shown that they can step up and make plays, right? There's been 4 touchdown performances from Gabe Davis, and there's been, look at that Patriots game with Isaiah McKenzie. Like it's been unreal at times, but it's also been bottom of the barrel offense at times. You know what I mean? So it's
mind-boggling.
Yeah. The highest of highs and lowest of lows. And I think this guy, Adam Henry's I think he'll, if not bring one of these guys back, like Landry, OBJ, Rashad Higgins, but that'd be nice. That'd be nice to add another piece to the offense. But if OBJ took a cheap contract, like incentive based, like just for a ring chaser contract, I'd be okay with that. You know what I mean? But
if he wants the Michael Gallup contract, it's like
yeah,
4-year contract, then no.
Yeah. Apparently Gronkowski's going back to the Broncos. Did you see that before the Super Bowl?
The what?
Gronk's going to the Broncos. Did you see that before the Super Bowl?
Is he really?
Sean Payton had his he was going to wear a gray suit. He had it switched to a blue suit with an orange tie. And then they were talking when they had to make their game picks, like we'll name them the Denver Broncos if you come back, like all this stuff. Like it was a bit, but it was just funny. Like speaking of coaching hirings and all that stuff. But no, I think he can have a huge effect on our offense and really help our wide receivers out, and not make Diggs be the only dude out there, and spread the wealth, help out quite a bit. But now let's flip to the defense. What would you say if Poyer and Edmonds both left, right? Even though after I asked this question, I do have a quick report that I saw, but which would be the bigger need to fill?
Don't do the report I think you're telling me. Was that report? That report is fake.
What, the one of Poyer getting the franchise tag?
That's a fake report.
Fake? All right. Thank you. Fake report. Don't listen to it.
There's no way they would do that.
You don't think so?
No.
What do you think they would do before we move into that question? Like, what if they want to keep both of them but don't want to sign? Like, no, I feel like you sign.
No, the Poyer's gone. Like
Poyer's gone, but you sign Edmonds. That's what I think.
The only person that could possibly do back is Edmonds. I'm 50-50. It's like a 50-50 shot on that. They let Matt Milano test free agency, like legitimately test free agency. Like he was a free agent for a couple hours, I think. And then he kind of came back when he saw the market. I think maybe we see the same situation of Edmonds, unless maybe he signs with another team actually. But I think the Bills would definitely give him an offer, and then if he doesn't sign, they're going to keep their offer until he signs with another team or he takes their offer. So, talking about your question about the big, it's definitely an interesting debate. Definitely a big hole to fill for both those players' shoes. Like Edmonds played like an All-Pro this year, was probably the most improved player on the team. And Jordan Poyer is an All-Pro, so both play a big part in the middle of your defense. And I would say for me, it would be Tremaine, because I don't see an option to replace him currently on the roster. Like Poyer, I think we don't know the situation of Hamlin's we don't know, but with Hyde coming back, like Hyde and Poyer switching is kind of a wash to me. They would probably have to move Christian Ben forward to safety if hopefully Hamlin will return to the field if he wants to, but that kind of situation they probably might have to add a second safety. But at least I feel like with Poyer there's options to replace him. I don't really see the option on the roster right now to replace Tremaine, and I don't know if it's like a great draft to draft inside linebacker. So they'd probably have to spend on a cheaper veteran option like Jermaine Pratt for the Bengals, who's very solid. If Eric Kendricks gets cut for the Vikings, he's a very good zone linebacker, a little bit past his prime, but he's a very good player as well. So I think that would have to be, they'd have to find, outside options. So I think that's why that linebacker would become the bigger need, is because you don't have the in-house options. Also, like I think Tremaine would also, even for a different question, probably be a bigger loss because he does so much for you in the middle of your defense.
He calls all the plays too.
And we saw it without him. The second half against Minnesota compared to first half against Minnesota. First half Tremaine played, second half Tremaine didn't play. They gave a bunch of points to Tyrell Dobson. Like they were a top 5 pass defense when Tremaine was on the field according to EPA per play. When he was off the field, they were really bad.
Yeah,
the difference between him and that were like 4th and 29th. Like they were really bad without him on the field. Now, granted, that could be a bunch of backups at times, so it's not like
the injury bug did hit. So I mean, like it was thin, but
at the same time, it's definitely a concern. I think his loss would be more concerning, both as like a loss and as a need would be higher for me.
No, I would agree with that. I think he's stepped up. I was a Tremaine hater, if you've been listening for the past 2 seasons now. I've gone back on that. He's earned very much respect from this past season. He's really he gave it his all, and you could tell him and Milano were locked down when they were out there on the field together. And I would hate to see him go after him developing here and whatnot, but it's like The Godfather. It ain't personal. It's just business. You know what I mean? Like, it's if at the end of the day, our cap is so high and it's so tough to keep these good players around, because if you offer him a contract, someone's going to try and one up that contract who's looking for a good linebacker. You know what I mean? Like that's just what's going to happen. And I think I would absolutely agree with you. If Poyer left, Hyde will slide in, and you know what I mean? Like, you can try out Benford at safety, which we talked about when they drafted him, did we not? I remember we spoke about that during training camp. And I think if Edmonds leaves, like you said, you can't promote from within. You got to go out and find someone. So, and I think you're going to have trouble finding someone to fill that void of play calling, being locked down out there. He was tackling left and right this year too. I mean, it wasn't like he was just out there, and that'd be a huge loss.
Yeah, that would be big. So before we leave, I just want to transition one quick point back to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
We saw the creativity on both ends. Obviously, the Eagles with their fantastic QB6. No, I'm kidding. I mean, they have
they're 4th and 1s.
They're very good with their scheme. I mean, we saw the 2 touchdowns for the Chiefs. I mean, just the definition of schemed open, to cause havoc. That's why I've always been like the biggest fan of motion in your offense. Like we saw, like I don't know if you saw the back angle from the was it Pachenko who had the rushing touchdown? Yeah, like they motioned, like I don't remember who was in the backfield, but back and forth, and you saw the defense move, and then all of a sudden they did like a handoff, but they had option for the opposite play as well, like opposite side of the field as well. So the defense shifted a little bit, and then they had the fullback who was Jarrett McKinnon, who's a running back, be the lead blocker for him for the touchdown. It was a sick play. That's a cooler play than either of the 2 touchdowns to Tony or Sky Moore, because that was just like looking from the back, and that's why I think Dorsey has to become that. Like, you have to become a top offensive coordinator. You get a year, fine. He's got to become more creative in the offense. Like, Patrick Mahomes is a great player, so I'm not going to like bash him, but like those 2 touchdowns were literally like, someone SportsCenter asked him like at Disney World, like, can an average person playing in the NFL complete pass? And he said no. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, if I had like that time and I knew the play and he was that open, I mean, would he score? I might not have thrown the best ball, so maybe he wouldn't have scored, but I think he would have caught it. Like, he was that open. And I think that's what I want to start seeing of Dorsey. I also want to start seeing more plays leading up to something. We saw this with Dable. I think the perfect example is the San Francisco touchdown with McKenzie with the jet motion. Then he became the jet wheel route, and he was wide open. Yeah, okay, you used McKenzie somewhat as a decoy that they just thought he was going to go laterally, and then when he went vertically up the field, they had no one to cover him because they just assumed he was going to stay in the flat. Like,
yeah,
that's like lulling someone to death, pretty much. And we saw it.
You got to be shifty.
Yeah, Dorsey does that in the first touchdown of the year. Little run play. Davis fakes blocks, goes upfield. Like that's a play that starts by you running the ball with that formation and then passing out of it. Like,
yeah,
I want more of that from Ken Dorsey.
I feel like post bye week we lost the shiftiness on both sides of the ball, right? Even like looking at defense, Frazier to win that Chiefs game had half the field in man, half the field in zone, confusing the offense. You know what I mean?
They still mixed up a lot of their coverages, though.
Yeah, but I mean that forced the interception. But offensively, it's just like you said, we saw that.
I think that's where you get with the problem with the elbow is that could he have was he like, I can't do it. Like, I can't, like, that throw to Holmes made to Sky Moore. I know it looks like an easy book, but he caught it and threw it. Like, did Allen say like, hey, I can't catch and throw, I'm going to kill my elbow doing that? Like, maybe listen, I feel like that's kind of an excuse again, but like at the same time, like maybe that had an impact where it's like, hey, I can't, like, I got to take a second once I catch the ball. I can't do all in one motion or my elbow's going to.
Well, also, if you watch like older film, any sidearm pass he throws are the short, quick underneath passes, like slants and stuff like that. Like he'll zip them sidearm, and it just seems like that was gone. That ability, post elbow injury. So I think that was huge because everyone's like, why isn't he throwing underneath? Why isn't he throwing screen passes? I'm like,
it doesn't excuse his decision making, which is
no,
terrible.
of course not.
At
But
the end of the
there's
year,
definitely a factor.
no, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But no, I think the creativity offensively, the play calling that leads to plays down the road needs to happen for Dorsey. I also think like both those offensive lines are dominant. Now I know the field conditions, whatever, they were slipping too though.
Mm-hmm.
But like both those offensive lines were dominant, and
I was like, we would have gotten floored just simply by the O line. I feel like
that's where the Bills,
the trenches, baby.
trenches. They need to invest. They need to. I think more. It's more of like they need to add like another wide receiver, take the thing off Gavis, and maybe they need to add like another elite receiver. But they need to add more to the offensive line so they can be better in that scenario. And then my final point: the Kansas City Chiefs played their rookies. It's as simple as that. Trent McDuffie got burned down that touchdown by AJ Brown, but he was out there and he was making some plays down the stretch.
Yeah.
Joshua Williams is a rookie, I believe. Brian Cook, who had the big play against the Bengals, rookie safety.
Should have been playing Shakir all year for the Bills.
George Karlaftis, edge rookie. I mean, I could go Sky Moore, Isaiah Pachenko. Isaiah Pachenko fumbled in his first career game, fumbled, I think in his third career game, and then fumbled 2 more times on the stretch. And he had twice as amount of carries as James Cook did.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous. Like James Cook averaged 5.7 yards per carry.
And he fumbled his first touch, and then did he fumble again? I'm trying to think. I don't remember.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I just think they're not playing James Cook more, not playing Khalil Shakir. I just read this on my phone that Khalil Shakir, I don't know. I got to look who actually says this.
Because when you look at Shakir, though, just quick sidebar while you're looking at that, the last couple games we played where they threw to him, he was big. Like that was huge,
So rookies, wide receivers getting open versus single man coverage. Shakir ranked 4th among all receivers, under 25 receivers, tops among rookies, with 70 single man snaps, getting open 34 times for a 48.57%. That's more than Garrett Wilson. That's more than Sky Moore. That's more than Chris Olave. Like he was getting open, but then you look at Garrett Wilson and his stats as 212 and Khalil Shakir 70. Like Khalil Shakir should have been getting more opportunities. Like, yes, did he drop the ball against the Dolphins? Yes. But like we saw him make plays in that game. The 3rd and 1, he made a couple plays against the Bengals. Like I just feel like expanding. I just hope, because I think this rookie class could actually be good. Like people were really mad at this rookie class. I actually think this rookie class could be kind of decent if you expand Cook and Shakir's role. You move Benford to safety full time, and you have Elam finally be the starting corner. Like that you could potentially have 4 starters in that class, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. So I think this class gets a little bit hate. The 3rd round pick Bernard will never not be a bad pick in my mind. But
no, I agree.
If they could get 4 starters out of this class, that's a pretty good class, and hopefully they can build on it this year and add some stuff to the trenches and that stuff. And then you can have more starters. Like that's how it's too early to trash Bean for this draft, I would say, but the last couple drafts you can. This draft I think could be good. Like I think there's definitely potential in this draft.
Right. I agree.
I think there's star potential maybe lacking. I don't know if there's like a superstar, but I think there's above average
talent
players in this draft.
Yeah, and I want to say one more thing before we move into the Sabres. People are talking. They want Bijan Robinson in the 1st round. If we do that, in all seriousness, I'll be hucking something at the TV. Like it's why do you want another running back? We have people are like smash mouth football. That's not how it is anymore. Unless you're the Eagles on 4th and 1. That's the only time that works.
I will say this: if Bijan Robinson or Michael Mayer is the best player available, and there's a couple offensive linemen that you like, trade back. Like there's someone that would want to get them. Like trade back at that point.
Yeah, get some more picks. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think, truthfully, that wasn't my final point. This is my final point. So I know I've said this before, but it's a copycat league. right? Deion Dawkins said it at the Pro Bowl. He was talking about the trenches. It's copycat league on his spiel or whatever he was doing. He's going crazy on the camera. But you gotta look at the Chiefs and be like, wow, the way they drafted, you know what I mean? Like the way they worked around Mahomes getting big time money, like that kind of a thing. Granted, they sacrificed Tyreek Hill, right? And
Hey,
they're
but
also trying to
they won in a retooling year. They
right.
won, and that's what the Bills are going to have to do.
They're gonna have to do that. They're gonna have to do that, and that's when you look at the Chiefs though and how they did it. That's what you. I'm not saying trade Stephon Diggs, like that's not what I'm saying. Like don't do the exact same thing, but it can be done, and they won the Super Bowl this year. You got to just draft well and get these good rookies out there playing all season, because if you don't start hot, okay, but by the end of the season, if you get them working in a rhythm, that's all that matters. Screw the 1 seed. We play better on the road anyway. I'd rather play 3 road playoff games. You know what I mean? Like it's just the only good playoff game, great playoff game we've played at home now is that Patriots game in the wild card. You know what I mean? 47-17.
Somewhat accurate. But I mean, they also are in the McDermott era 0-3 on the road. So
yeah, but those games are all crazy good games though, minus the AFC Championship against the Chiefs.
that's true. I concur.
Yeah. But I think that's going to do it for our Bills topic today. But before we move into the Sabres, I would just like to bring up the Sports Bring People Together podcast. You should listen for entrepreneurial conversations with those in sports. And who knows where the chats will take you, but sports got us all here together in the first place. Maybe I'll be able to say entrepreneurial right at some point in my life. But find this show wherever you listen to podcasts or simply visit sportseplus.com. And now we're going to talk about our awesome Buffalo Sabres this past week. Let's just say that. I don't know. This was not a good week. They basically, I don't know, imploded, vommed everywhere. Like it was bad. Like this was a hangover week. I'm telling you. It's just, I don't know. It was looking up. It really was. It was looking good, and then here we are. So I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, I mean, they gave up 12 straight goals at one point. Just a very well. I'll say this: I have a gripe with the fact that like Calgary already played multiple games after the break before the Sabres even played their first game. I think that's lame. Like I think the first opponent you play after the break should be a team coming off their break as well. I don't understand why the NHL does that. Where like Calgary, I think it was their second or third game after the break, and this is the Sabres' first. But it's kind of weird though because the Sabres started out 2-0. But Calgary was a better team. They gave up 7 goals. Luukkonen kind of left out to dry. I didn't think he was great either. So I think I would have pulled them once it went to 4-2 just to get some momentum maybe back on my side.
Mm-hmm.
LA was just a mess. Couple defensive breakdowns, couple really bad goals given up by Anderson. Overall, just a complete mess. Anaheim almost. I mean, the Sabres are a team now. It's a young team, so it's really frustrating to watch. But I mean, they're up 2-0, and then all of a sudden they're losing 3-2 to Anaheim. Like, and yes, they stomp back and they score 5 goals and they win 7-3.
Yeah,
score looks great, but at the same time, it's like the Sabres have a very bad habit of just stringing together 10 minutes of just horrific hot. Like they'll play great for 20 minutes, and they'll play like significantly terrible for 5 to 7 minutes, and they're losing. And it's like, how is this making any sense?
Right.
Can
I just say something real fast?
Oh, sure.
The one thing I've noticed, right? I mean, last year at this time, I was watching the Sabres, wasn't really like into it, right? Here we are now. I'm devoted. And one thing I'm noticing the most, honestly, that I see, transition play and passing in the neutral zone is horrific. It's just whoever
bad.
has
Yeah.
When these passes,
when they're bad, it's bad.
Yeah, it's literally chickens with their heads cut off, just running around in the neutral zone trying to get the puck across the blue monster. Like that's really it, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it comes down to the fact that the Sabres don't really have that second way of beating you. You know, they're not good at all. They're one of the worst teams in hockey in retrieving pucks, which means if they dump it in, their percentage chances of recovering that puck in possession is very low compared to the rest of the league. And I think that's the problem where if teams play them right and don't turn the puck over and don't give them odd-man breaks, like, and if their passing's off, they're going to really struggle. We saw it against Calgary. I mean, they couldn't complete a pass to save their life. little bit with the Kings. The Kings just again, I don't even know what to say about that game. That game was just it was 0-0, and then all of a sudden it was 5-0. But at the same time, it's a young team. You're going to expect that. Do I think they can still make the playoffs? Sure. I mean, technically by percentage points, I think they're behind Detroit now because Detroit won last night.
They are, yeah.
By point percentage, with the games in hand, they have an opportunity. But you got to win the games in hand, and I'm not going to truly believe they could do it unless they go on a little bit of a run here. Like they had to win against Anaheim. Like if they lost against Anaheim, I've been like, I don't know,
not making the playoffs.
I also think, against San Jose, that's also a must win. San Jose is also a bad team. You got to be able to find a way to get 2 points there. So can they still make the playoffs? Sure. Do I think it's likely? I'm going to say no. I think they have, in my mind, they have like a 33% chance to make the playoffs. Like a 1-3. If they win the games in hand, they have an opportunity. But
they'd have to really just put everything together, and they just don't have defense depth to do that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think that's another thing because they're frantically passing the puck around in transition. Then they get a turnover and there's no one to stop them from going down and scoring. Like that's just kind of what's happening, especially Craig Anderson, who seems like to have holes all through his body now at this point. Like it's just going in, and Eric Comrie, who we barely play, expected to go in and, perform.
I think that's the good thing about Comrie is he gave up like 2 rebound goals. And it's like, you kind of expect that for a dude that plays once a month.
Right.
Like,
but I think you got to play him more. Him and UPL, I think, should be the rotation. I understand he was coming back from injury and whatnot, right? But like UPL has kind of stepped out into the point where I'd say if we ever get Levi, I'd be comfortable with UPL and Levi swapping back and forth. You know what I mean?
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I don't know. Like he's winning games, sure, but
inconsistent.
I think he's been really inconsistent, and I don't know. He's like the Calgary game was a really perfect example of that. Yeah, he made a lot of saves and he made some great ones, but he also just gave up some really bad goals.
Yeah, you want to know the worst goal I've seen be given up though is Craig Anderson kicking it in himself the other day. That was horrifying. I was
right. Ryan Miller one time they chipped in from the center ice line and it bounced once and went over the club and in.
Yeah, but
happens to the best. But yeah, I think it was a difficult week, but it's a week where they've now played 3 games after the break, so hopefully they're finding their legs now, and they're going to go on a little bit of a run. But so talking about defense, Rasmus Dahlin, in a survey from ESPN with NHL Exacts coaches, was ranked as the 8th best defenseman in hockey. Is 8 too low? I think it's interesting. I think this season he's having one of the top 3 or 5 kind of years, which is I think is bizarre why they have him 8th.
I think it's kind of the situation around him playing into that. You know what I'm saying? Like looking at the defense as a whole and grouping him into that, I feel like a little bit because I would have him at 5.
It's weird because one of the quotes was, "Would you have him out there in a 5v6?" And I don't know. I come back to the point of this. Erik Karlsson is one of the worst defensemen in hockey, but the man has 73, like is top 5 at points. Would he be my like top 10 choice for a 5v6? No, I'd pick a way better defensive defenseman. So like for Dahlin, probably not. Cause I don't consider Dahlin a top 10 defensive. Like he's a good 2-way defenseman. Like defense isn't necessarily his best attribute. So I just think that's a stupid point to really make because like there is other defensemen who are very offensive driven that are ranked over him in the list, and it's like I wouldn't want them in a 5v6 either. Like that's not their strong suit. Dahlin I think is proven to be a fringe top 5 defenseman, as you said. So I think it's too low for him, but I do understand that this is his first real full year breakout. We saw it in the second half last year. This year is his first true breakout, so it makes sense that he's a little bit lower on the list for my liking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm right there with you. Like I said, I mean, if I was just doing it, I would have thrown him at 5 because I think he's one of the only reasons him and Power, the 2 big reasons why this defense is even credible at all. If we didn't have either of them, I think it would be,
Well,
horrible.
the 2 number 1 picks, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Five probably sounds about right. Yeah, probably 5. Carlson's having a good year. Charlie McAvoy's a good defenseman for Boston. Adam Fox, I think won the Norris 2 years ago. Cal McCarr. So 5 sounds about right to me. I just think that's where he should be, but I digress. Well, talking about, you talked about Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin. I think they have an interesting relationship now, because I feel like we're going to start very soon, because this year I think Dahlin's going to get significant Norris votes, and Power's having a really great year. Now, I don't think he'll get a real Norris consideration because he's a rookie, but starting next year, I think there's a real chance if he takes the jump like defensively and scores more points, that he's going to put himself in that conversation. And it's going to be interesting because they're going to start stealing votes from each other. You got to think, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one thing. If Owen Power can stop shooting right into the middle of the chest, I think so.
That's
but
true. He does do that a lot. He did
yeah.
it like 2 times. He had like a point shot on the wrist or right in the chest.
He had at least 3 shots the other night that went right into the chest. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
I think it's an interesting conversation, like for the voters, like who's truly the number. Like in a year, if Owen Power takes a jump that we all think he's going to take, and Dahlin still that elite defenseman, you have two elite defensemen, like who's truly the best defenseman on the team, and how does that impact, voting? I do say this though. I think this would have been an interesting conversation about 5 years ago, but now since we saw Connor McDavid win the Hart and Leon Draisaitl win the Hart, both on the same team, I find it a little bit like, now that's Ford, so maybe it's different, but like those two guys both play on the same team, both put up the same, both play on the same power play, both play together sometimes. Like for them to both win like a big award shows that the voters can probably look past the team having another real top of the league teammate. So I think this would have been an interesting conversation maybe a couple years ago. But still, I think it's going to be interesting. Again, that's the MVP, best defense, and there's no doubt there's going to be vote stealing though, because there's going to be, I think there's going to be some disagreement on who's truly the best defenseman. Then you see like Power could be ranked. What's the difference between Power being voted third one year to Dahlin being voted fifth, and vice versa? Like,
right.
That's how you get like a third party to maybe sweep in there and snatch the award.
Cal Clegg. After he was live the other night, he was a live one. He's getting rowdy out there, But
yeah, that was also he got thrown out of the game.
Yeah. But Cal Clegg's getting thrown out of games now. But
so yeah, so that's interesting. I think that's going to be an interesting thing to look at. Talking about last week a little bit more. Granato line experiment failed. They came out flat. Against, I shouldn't say they came out flat because they were up 2 against Calgary, but they fell apart. Felt the need for him to switch up the lines. I think he made a mistake switching the top line. The top line should stay the top line. I do think they need to move around the other 3 lines. And they did a little bit better job of that against Anaheim. So I'm interested to see how that works out. Devin Levi won the Beanpot MVP for Northeastern. Big Northeastern was a bubble team. They were ranked, I think the top 16 schools making the tournament. They were 17, but they beat 2 top 10 teams in Harvard, and I believe it was BU or Boston College. It's one of the Boston College.
One of them.
They mixed together for me, but big win for him. So I think he's just going to be a stud. But the question, I think you said something interesting about you should roll with UPL and Common moving forward for this season. Are you okay rolling that into next season? Because you got to look short term. Because long term, Levi, I think in 2 and 3 years he'll be at least playing in the NHL. But I think he's still at least 2 years away from being a legit NHL contributor. So you have 2 years next season and the season following where you had to figure out your goalie situation.
See, UPL, if he plays the rest of this season, and if we do make a wild card appearance, which is becoming more I should say less and less, more of a chance. I would say if he performs, yes, but Comrie is tough. You got to play him more if you want him to be decent. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not. It's like throwing a rusty car in a race at that point. Like you gotta grease him up and let him go out there. Like it's just not going to happen. Next season, I think Anderson's gone. You can't hang him around anymore. I think you might have to. Everyone wants Adams to trade for a goalie right now. When's the deadline?
March 3rd.
March 3rd. Do you think he will?
I don't think he's going to make a move this season because I think he's going to roll with what he's got. I mean, he already has 3 goalies. I don't see him unless maybe the team wants Comrie back in return. I think for me, I think UPL and Comrie is not good enough next season, especially for a season that like this season's kind of, as we talked about going in and throughout really the season, is like you're not really having that pressure to make the playoffs. It would kind of be like a feel good story if you did. Next season, I think they do have pressure to make the playoffs. Like I think next year is the year. It's like, okay, this is the first year in a while where it's like playoffs are the number one goal and should happen. And I don't think a playoff contending team has that kind of tandem. I don't. UPL again has been solid. I think he has really bad moments though.
Yeah, maybe if you found a solid goalie to roll with UPL.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, like that's kind of I feel like a better option because then
there's takers on Comrie. I would trade like Demko is an interesting option. He's terrible this year, a little bit injury, banged up. I saw the post where he re-injured himself in practice, but he was really good the 2 years previous. Vancouver's kind of in a no man's spot. He has 3 years left at $5 million. They had this cap to take his cap
for Fleury.
Yeah, he would be an interesting he would be an interesting buy low kind of candidate a little bit, but he's young enough to bounce back and maybe he becomes the goalie with Levi if UPL doesn't work out. So he's an option. There are other options that I'm just drawing a blank on, but I do think they need to add a significant upgrade goaltender over Eric Comrie.
Yeah, and I think. Do you think they run with 3 or just 2 next season?
Next year, there's 2. You can't. Yeah. I don't like the 3 anymore. I just think it was a cool idea, and now it was a cool idea in retrospect. But now looking at it, like as you said, Comrie's not getting enough games, Anderson's not getting enough games, and you're trying to develop Luke, and it's just kind of it's just a weird mix. Mm-hmm. So the last point I want to make before we do our predictions and that stuff is I do feel the need to talk about Casey Mittelstadt. Casey Mittelstadt's pretty well. I'm gonna give him some props. Like the first 30 plus games, he was legitimately terrible. The last 20 games, he's been one of the better forwards on the team.
I remember you pulled up a graphic at one point in his first 30 games, and it was like I forget what it was, but him and Bryson were just like doing absolutely like nothing compared to the rest of the team.
Absolutely nothing. Mittelstadt's bounced back. I think a lot of that has to do with Yost and who he's playing with as well. I think has really helped him.
Yeah,
especially with his defensive impacts. His performance right now has stopped me from saying trade him at the deadline. I still think they should trade him at the offseason because of his value.
Yeah.
Will never be higher with his performance.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I mean, it's just like I would normally say I would trade him for a bag of pucks, right? In the beginning of the season, right? That's like a going around thing. Like people would give up nothing to get rid of him. But now I feel like he's got some value, and if you hang on to him through the offseason, maybe you kind of can work something out. I don't know. It's tough because you see him playing well now, right? And you're absolutely right. And Jost has come along and kind of changed those bottom lines, I would say. Like whenever he's played on them, they actually are point scorers and goal scorers, so it's interesting. Mittelstadt's kind of doing all right. I mean, we're going to talk about the goal leader and point leader. I mean, he is both. So that's something.
Yeah, he had a good week. I think for me, I agree with what you're saying from a perspective of value wise. I don't think he'll ever. It's kind of like a little bit like Olofsson last year. Mm-hmm. I don't think either. And he's playing pretty decent well this year too. Olofsson, they're kind of similar in point rise. Like I think moving on from those guys, adding better contributors to your team is important because for me, those 2 guys are the definition of perimeter players. They're not one of those guys that are going to retrieve the puck. They're going to stay on the walls. And I think replacing those 2 players of people that are those kind of like, I don't know, I hate using the word gritty, but Mike loves it. So like those gritty guys that are going to go in and forecheck, but also have like offensive skill. Also, you could add a defenseman with one of them too. So you could add like more of a forechecker defensive kind of guy as well, who still could put up similar kind of point total and add another defenseman, or that's how you add the goalie. I just think those two guys are prime examples of don't trade them at the deadline, but in the offseason, I think they're going to have value, and I think it would be wise for them to move on. But listen, I'm happy he's playing well right now, and hopefully he continues to get play to increase his value so we can trade him. And help the Sabres win. And help the Sabres win. And help the Sabres win.
And help the Sabres win. If Casey Mittelstadt is the reason we go to the playoffs, I'm going to freak out. That's all I'm saying. Like, you won't hear from me for a week. I don't know.
So last week, the Sabres obviously went 1-2. I think Mike might have predicted that right. I think Mike said they were going to go 1-2. I think I said 2-1. You said 1-1-1. So I was a little bullish on my prediction. They have 3 games this week. They are in San Jose tomorrow to end their Western, California road trip. Then they're at home against the Leafs on Tuesday. They're in Tampa on Thursday, and they're at Florida on Friday. I assume we'll have the Friday pod as always. So it's 3 games, and I'm gonna say 1-2. I think they win tomorrow and lose the next 2.
I'm gonna say this is bold. All right. I think we've had a lackluster week of Sabres hockey. I think they're right, even though Anaheim's awful, right? The not so mighty Ducks. I would say that they're riding high after coming back like that and winning like handily. And I think they go 3-0. I think they run the table. It's bold, but I would love to see it.
All right, so our goal and point leader last week, the point leader was Mittelstadt at 5. The goal leaders was Mittelstadt, Tage, Cousins, and Krebs all had 2 apiece, so a little spread out. Joe, who are your goal and point leaders for the week?
Give me Tuck for goals. I think he's gonna come awake here. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I'll give me the point monger Mittelstadt. I'm gonna run it back and see if he could do it another week.
I'm gonna go Olofsson for goals and Owen Power for points. I'm going to go a little off the board.
All right. That works. Oh my God. I can't believe I put Mittelstadt on the board. That's like,
too late to change now. It's written down in pen.
It's done. It's typed up in pen.
So,
but I think that's
it, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's it for our Sabres topic. And without further ado, Kiko's got the Would You Rather and the trivia today. Dom has the Would You Rather and trivia today. Again, call them Kiko on the pod. That's nuts. But
yeah, double duty today. So Would You Rather? I guess the Would You Rather is a little bit more of a funny Would You Rather. Would you rather get hit by a 95-mile-per-hour pitch or block a 95-mile-per-hour slap shot?
Ooh, holy cow! I'm blocking in full hockey gear, right? Where's it hitting me?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're gonna say the shin.
Okay, because if I get hit by a fastball, I could either turn into it. Is it hit me in the shin too?
The fastball is gonna hit you in the ribs. Well, I shouldn't say the ribs. I shouldn't say the ribs because that might change your answer. It's going to hit you in the side. You could move if you want.
Okay. Well, I remember when we played baseball together.
I'll say this right now. It's coming 95.
I remember when we played baseball together, you always turned into pitches and let them hit you. You're just like, you're a monger for the hit by pitch. Yeah. But I don't know. This is tough because I don't want either to happen. Like, that's the tough part about it, But I think, honestly, with hockey pads, even though it's coming into the shin where there's less padding.
I shouldn't say shin. I'm gonna change. It's like
in between the pads on the ribs.
Sure. It's like, okay, I'll
same spot for both.
You're in no danger of breaking a bone. Like, I feel like if it hit your shin, you have a chance of breaking your leg. You're not gonna break your bone. You're just gonna be bruised. So which one would you rather take?
Both of them are coming in roughly at 90 miles an hour. So
95, I mean 95.0.
Yeah, 95.0. And a baseball has a little play to it, whereas a hockey puck's a hard piece of rock pretty much coming at you. So having been it's tough. I'm going baseball. I'd rather get hit by the pitch than a 95-mile-an-hour Tage Thompson one-timer right to the rib. You know what I mean?
I think it's hard because, like,
the puck's like shaped.
But like, this is my point. At least in the NHL, like, I shouldn't say NHL because anywhere you can get hit by a slap shot. but at least I know what I'm getting into. Like if I go to block the slap shot, like I know what I'm getting into. Baseball, you're just looking to hit, man, and all of a sudden the ball's coming at you. Like I just think the fear factor of that. I'm taking the slap shot.
Are you?
I just I wouldn't feel comfortable like being in like facing like Jacob deGrom, and the next thing you know the ball's coming right at my ribs. Like I don't know if I would react long enough where I would get hit in the side, and that would probably sting. I don't know. Slap shots also probably sting. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like either options, but I think I would take the slapper.
Yeah. How about option C? None of the above. Maybe that would probably be the best option. But
yeah, that was I didn't know what to expect from that. Would you rather? I thought you were going to come up with like a very quick answer.
No, I had to think about that, especially with both of them coming in. Like I'm thinking in the perspective of Tage Thompson ripping one, and then like Garrett Cole just ripping one right to your ribs. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of
not an appealing.
Either way, yeah.
Okay, so now we're on to trivia. Bills, Sabres, and random.
Okay.
So for the Bills one, talking about the Super Bowl, which Bills player scored the last touchdown for the Bills in the Super Bowl? Who scored the last touchdown for the Bills in the Super Bowl? Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, their last Super Bowl was 94, correct?
Yeah.
How many guesses do I get?
I'll give you 2 guesses, I guess.
Okay. Thurman?
Yep, Thurman's the answer.
Yep, okay. I figured.
Thurman had a 4-yard rushing touchdown in the second, I believe it's the first half. I think it was second quarter in the Super Bowl. They lost 30-13 to Dallas.
Yeah. Let's just say the NFC East really ran the table on us at that point. So.
All right, for the Sabres. How many non-rookie skaters have already set a career high in points this season? So no Jack Quinn, no JJ Paducah, no cheating by saying like goalies or whatever, because that's cheese. I didn't look that far into that one. So that's why I added non-rookie and skater to that question.
Okay. All right. Do I have to name them or just give you the number?
You could give me your number answer, and then if you want for extra credit for bonus, you could.
I'm gonna go for a number. I know Tage is 1. I think Cousins is 1, right?
I don't know.
Oh, you're not gonna give me them one by one,
right? No.
All right, I'll go 4.
4. The correct answer is 5.
Oh, I was one off. Okay.
Alex Tuck, 57 points. Previous was 52. Dylan Cousins, 47 points. The previous was 38. Tage Thompson, 70 points. Previous, 68. Rasmus Dahlin, 58 points. Previous, 53. And last but not least, I would have guessed 4 as well, but it is 5 because Casey Mittelstadt has 33 points and his previous career high in points.
You know what? My 4, if I actually kept naming them out, would have been Tuck and Dahlin. Those would have been the next 2 I said. Mittelstadt, I did not realize. I mean, just from the detrimental beginning of the season he had, that he was even in there. So
8 points too. He's beat his career high by a significant amount.
Yeah.
Tied with Cousins for the most. Actually, no, Cousins has 9-point difference. Can't do math. I would have guessed 4 as well, and then I was like, oh, Mittelstadt, 5. Okay. Well, the random one. Probably won't get this, so I'm probably gonna have to help you, which is fine. What year was the first Bison's league championship? I'll give you a hint to start us off. They started in 1988, so it's 1988 on. So I'm giving you a 35-year window?
Okay. I have one question. 1900s or 2000s. That's it.
1988.
No.
Oh, I'm not. No, I'm not.
You're not giving me that.
I'm not giving. I'll give you that if you want after your first guess.
Okay, 95.
It is the right decade.
I'm in the right decade?
Yes.
Okay. So now do I go high or low is the question.
You get one more guess.
98.
1997.
Oh my God. I was going to say 97. Oh, that was close. At least I was within 1 or 2.
Hey, you're within 1 on both, and you got the third one right.
Yeah.
Pretty good day.
Yeah. Got Thurman on the first one. Yeah. Not bad. All right. Well, Dom, thanks for the trivia. Thanks for stepping in. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Buffalonian podcast. I'm Joe Kelly, and I was joined by Dom Loss. And Dom, how do you always end these, buddy?
Go Bills, baby.
Go Bills, Super Bowl 58 champions.